Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mother Knows Death. This week we promised you guys we were going to do this, so here you go. We are talking about the Karen Read case today. There was a Lifetime movie that has come out recently called Accused, the Karen Read story. And I know a lot of people that have been following this case have been super interested in seeing the film adaptation of this crime, or not crime. I guess we can go back and forth. It's probably actually not a crime, at least with her anyway. So we are going to let you guys listen to an old episode that we did on Karen Read and the details of her trial. And then afterwards, we're going to do a review on how we thought the Karen Read story was portrayed in this Lifetime series that just showed.
Yeah, and we're going to put a timestamp in the description of the episode, so if you already listened to the episode or you want to skip that part again, you could just go right to the recap.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. We have a great episode for you today. We are going to talk about the shocking or not so shocking verdict in the Karen Read trial that was last week. And we're going to go through this case with a fine-tooth comb and give you all of the details that you are dying to know about. We know that some of you are true crime experts and know all the details of this case. And then we know that there's some of you that might have heard her name on the news and don't really know what the story is. And then there's other ones that are like, Karen who? So we're going to go through the whole case. I'm going to ask Maria a lot of questions and she's going to go through all of the details. And then we're going to talk about what was seen at autopsy, what my opinion is of that, and then what happened at her not one, but two trials. So let's get started, Ree. Why don't you tell them, like, who is Karen Read? Where are they from? Why is she in trouble? What happened?
All right, so this case is just kind of all over the place because it's normal people just like us, right? It's a financial analyst who's Karen Read with her boyfriend who's a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. They're in their early 40s at the time this occurred in 2022 when John died, so we're going to get more into that later. But just a little background on them as a couple. When they were in their early 20s, Karen and John had briefly dated but broke up. Fast forward to 2020, they reconnect on Facebook, which is funny to me to send somebody a message and start dating after all those years. But they reconnect via Facebook and start dating again. So they're in this relationship for a couple of years, but according to friends and family, it was pretty tumultuous and all over the place.
All right, so there's one important thing to know about John, because he wasn't a typical just single guy that was in his 40s. So do you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, so John's sister tragically passed away from cancer, and then shortly after, her husband died from a heart attack, leaving their children to be orphans. So John was kind of seen as this angel because he took custody of his niece and nephew and was raising them.
So they're pretty much little kids at this time. So he was dating. I'm just trying to put this all into perspective so we could all relate to it. So he is dating her and has little kids that are essentially, he's acting as the father for these children. They live at his house and he was with her for a couple years. So she was around them.
Yeah, she's around them. She's seemingly pretty integrated into their life. I mean, she definitely wasn't living there. They weren't getting married. So, but when you're dating somebody and you're in a serious relationship and you have children, I mean, you're going to cross paths.
Yeah. So, okay. So what happened so they're dating and they're fighting all the time. Everybody agrees with this. And like, still that doesn't make anything suspicious because people or relationships fight all the time. So what happened leading up to John's death?
Well, before everybody gets all like the brother and sister died too, it's nothing nefarious in this case. It was genuine natural causes. It's not like Lori Vallow where there's multiple deaths in one family and we should look into it. Like, this is purely the sister had cancer, the husband had a heart attack. And then her brother unfortunately passed away, which we're going to touch on the details. Leading up until John's death, they weren't having the best relationship. It was tumultuous and all over the place. They had recently gone on a trip to Aruba, and according to friends who were on the trip, John had innocently hugged a female friend on the trip, which sent Karen into a total jealous rage and tizzy, and she did not like that at all. And then the day before his death, we see all these text messages coming out where they were seemingly having a fight. She had told him, "You really hurt me this time," and he replied, "Things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that?" So throughout the day, she proceeds to continue texting him and calling him, but he keeps saying it's not a good time. And later on, that doesn't look so great for her, but I don't think in most cases when you're having a fight with your significant other that you think that's gonna come up at your trial and not look great for you.
God, I know, right? The reading of the text messages in all of these cases, you're just like, nobody ever thinks that that's going to happen to them, of course. So that's always embarrassing. I mean, think about if somebody just took your phone and started reading your text messages, especially with your partner, your husband, wife, whatever. It's a little weird.
It is weird, and I said that with the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively case when he was trying to subpoena Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' text.
No, he just won in that. Apparently, he could get Taylor Swift and Blake Lively's text messages, which is, oh my God, if they get released, that's going to be some juicy shit right there. But all right, so let's get back to this. So these text messages she's sending, she's just kind of like, you're an asshole, basically, like back and forth, and they're fighting back and forth. So at some point, even though he's not taking her calls like anybody else, they decide to like make up and they're going to hang out later.
Yeah, that's something in the details of this case I'm kind of confused about. What happened between the all day long calls and text
It happens with
messages?
Everybody that fights. Like, it's just like, that's what happens.
So around 9 o'clock, John's out with some friends. So some of the key players in this case, he meets up at the bar with his friend Brian Albert, who's a former Boston police officer, Brian's wife Nicole, her sister Jennifer McCabe, and a friend Brian Higgins, who's an ATF agent. So they're all going to come up later in this trial, but those are the people that are there at the bar with them this night. Karen meets up with John and the friends at the bar. On CCTV, you can see them having a pretty good time. Everybody's drinking. It's the middle of a snowstorm, so everybody's probably off of work and just enjoying their night. So then we get to midnight, and the Alberts invite everyone back to their home.
Okay, so let's summarize where we're at right now. So we have Karen and her cop boyfriend are going back to the house of a retired cop. Yes. And his wife and her sister and this other guy, Brian. Anyone? So they're going in separate cars, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So John's seen leaving the bar with a glass in his hand, which is important because that's going to come up later. But has a glass from the bar and he gets into Karen's car. So around 12.
Are you allowed to do? I thought you weren't allowed to do that.
I mean, it's stealing, but like.
No, but I mean, just. In Vegas, you're allowed to walk around with a drink, but that's like the only place in America that you could do that, right?
Are you
like
allowed to drink and drive?
It
doesn't
listen,
mean these people were
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's like kind of unusual to leave a bar with the drink still.
Yeah, but that's what drunk people do.
Okay.
So we're only mentioning that part because it comes up later. So at 12:15, John texts Jennifer McCabe asking for the address. 10 minutes later, John's cell phone data then pings him at the house, and at that point, Karen claims they did leave the bar and go to the Alberts' home, but at that point she had asked John if he could go up to the door and make sure it was okay they were there, because I don't think she was on that friendly of terms with the Alberts. So this is according to Karen, that she wanted to make sure it was okay they were there.
All right, so in my opinion, and like my opinion's whatever, but if I'm at the bar and someone invites me to their house afterwards, we're going to get in the car and we're going to drive, and then whoever's driving is going to park the car, and it will always be Gabe because I don't drive. Right. So, okay, Gabe parks the car. We both get out. I get out my side. He gets out his side, and then we go to the house. Like, to me, it's just very unusual for me to be like, can you just, like, as because they're my age, right? Like, yeah, be like, can you make sure it's okay at the party?
But think about it. They're fighting all the time.
Well, and they're drunk. They're all drunk.
They're all drunk. His friends probably don't like her. They might know. Somebody might have mentioned that they were fighting earlier that day, and they were like, why are you bringing your naggy girlfriend out to drink?
It's just wait, you have to agree that this is just kind of bizarre behavior for people that are almost 50 years old.
I think you think it is because you don't drink, but I think this is an average night out
Pretty
for a lot of
standard,
people.
really. Yeah.
It is pretty standard, really, for people that drink. Like, obviously, you should not be drinking and driving, but I think a lot of people go out and then they want to continue their night at somebody's house.
Okay, so you're saying that part's not weird. I think that part's a little weird, but whatever. So continue. What happened? So she says that he got out of the car.
So Karen claims they pulled up to the house. John got out of the car and was supposed to go knock on the door, make sure it was okay they were there, and then signal back to her that it was okay for them, and then she would come inside. So she says she's sitting in her car scrolling on the phone, and she waited about 10 to 15 minutes, and she never heard anything back from him. So she got really pissed because she had to pee really bad. And she drove back to his house, which was only like a couple minutes down the road. And then she starts leaving him these incredibly angry voicemails.
Well, because according to her, she thinks that he went inside and was like, F that broad, like, and just kept partying and didn't come back to get her.
Yeah, so let's stop and reevaluate like what's happening so far. So the whole day before they're arguing via text, something happens where they're fine enough to meet up, and then you add alcohol into the situation, and then you add these people in the mix that maybe aren't all getting along. So then you're at 12:36 at this point is when the first voicemail comes through. Karen leaves John a voicemail that says, I fucking hate you. And then a couple minutes later, John, I'm here with your fucking kids and nobody knows where the fuck you are, you fucking pervert. And then she says, John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. You're fucking using me right now. You're fucking another girl. You're a fucking loser. Fuck yourself. So this is within an hour she's leaving him all of these voicemails. So at 1:30 a.m., Jennifer McCabe and other friends leave the Albert home. They say they go home. They don't notice anything unusual. Around 5 a.m., Karen then calls Jennifer and says, John never came home. Did you see him? So then Karen calls...
And you're saying, like, she wasn't really, like, great friends with this Jen person.
No, like, they were acquaintances, but...
Okay, so it wasn't, like, her best friend that she was just, like...
It wasn't her best friend, and I think she was probably only comfortable reaching out to her because they had just seen each other hours before.
Okay.
So then at this point, Karen calls John's friend Carrie, and she says John's dead. This is according to Carrie. And then Carrie picks Karen and Jennifer up. So if you want to pause right there, and, you know, everybody's still kind of drunk at this point. Karen seems like a pretty dramatic person. Of course, when you realize John is dead later, you think that's extremely suspicious that she made that proclamation, but is it for a dramatic person?
Did they say how the context in which it was said? Because, like, think about this. Let's just put yourself in this situation. Like, Ricky is pretty normal. Like, you're married to somebody and you know how they act. Let's say Ricky was supposed to be home at 12 o'clock and it's like 5 in the morning. You can't talk to him. You would call me and be like, oh my God, Mom, he hasn't called me. I know he's dead. Like, right? This is just like a meltdown.
That's how I'm picturing it. Because we're dramatic Italian women and this is exactly how it would go down over here.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. So, like, how was it said? It wasn't like, oh, he's dead, I'm sure. Like, how was it said? Was it frantic? Was it like, I just know something's wrong? Because it to Karen's defense, like, if she knows that he loves the kids and stuff and he wouldn't have left the kids with no one watching them and he didn't get back to her. And even though they fought and stuff, they always made up really quick, whatever. It was very unusual for her to not hear back from him at all, and nobody knew where he was. So, of course, everyone's mind goes to that. That's not just like a Karen Reed thing. That's like an everybody thing, right?
I don't think it's unusual she would have said something like that. I mean, I just read the voicemails she had left him, and clearly she was an extremely dramatic person, so I don't think it's that far-fetched that she, of course, immediately went to he's dead.
Yeah, I just don't, like, listen, like, you know, Gabe's a firefighter, right? Like, if I don't hear from him for 3 hours, I'm just kind of like, it's very unusual for him not to text me right back, and then I start going down, oh my God, he's her, something's wrong, you know. That's like normal shit people do. No?
Yeah, I don't think that's bizarre, but they really tried to use that against her later. So this is around 5 a.m. when she's calling Jennifer and John's friend Carrie to help look for him because nobody knows where he is at this point. So then an hour later, the three of them are driving around looking for John. They pull up to the Alberts house and then they see John laying in the snow in their front yard, unresponsive.
And what time was this again? Sorry.
This is at 6 a.m.
Okay, so it's what time of year was this? This was obviously it was in the winter.
January.
So it was probably just getting light out. So you know what I mean? Like it's not right. Is it dark at 6
No,
o'clock
it's
in the
dark.
morning?
It's dark.
So when they approach the scene and they see him lying in the snow out front of the house of the Albert, this is now the retired Boston cop's house.
The house they all went back to at midnight.
Yeah, let's say that. So what did they do? They ran out of the car right away. Like what happened?
So the friends Carrie and Jennifer are saying Karen got out of the car. She immediately saw him laying there, and so they were saying that it seemed like she knew he was there by how quick it was when they approached the house, which seems suspicious to them.
Well, I mean, what was it obvious that he was laying there? Because
I mean, I feel like it would be obvious to see a grown man laying on a white blanket of snow. I don't know. Like, I don't think that's that nuts.
all right, so they thought that it was a little weird. And now, is it possible that in Karen's mind that she was thinking like that it could have been possible that she hit him and that maybe she really was looking there? Or is that just kind of like, because you're saying according to the friends, but like we already know they didn't really like her, so they're obviously going to be like saying whatever to get her in trouble, right?
Well, this is what I'm getting at. There's clearly two sides of this story because things just, at this point, we have to go through both scenarios that both people take us through because they have a completely different series of events than she does. So according to the friends, they pull up to the Alberts home. Karen immediately sees him on the ground almost as if she knows he's laying there and then says, "I hit him, I hit him." But when Karen's retelling this series of events, she said, "I had a feeling and I saw him laying there and I said, I hit him, ? Like she was questioning, could I have hit him, not saying she did hit him.
Okay.
So that is something they also try to use against her in the trial.
Which I think, you know what, maybe we could talk about that after, but okay. I won't say that until after we go through everything. So when they approach his body, is he dead?
No, he's unresponsive, but he's seemingly still alive. So they call 911.
Okay. They call 911 and they bring him to the hospital.
But he is pronounced dead 2 hours later.
Okay. So what immediately after that, so this is only 7.5, 8 hours after they were last seen together. So she's his current girlfriend, so she goes to the hospital with him.
She goes to the hospital and she's acting so erratic there that she's put under like a psychiatric hold. So she doesn't even know he's dead at first when everybody else finds out because she's in a psychiatric hold.
Okay,
and
so
before this, she's texting her dad and saying, again, I think this is just being dramatic. John's dead. I don't want to live. Because she didn't know what was going on.
So I'm actually curious for people who work in emergency rooms, how often things like this happen, because I think, especially, I always think about all of these stories we talk about when you approach one of your loved ones who's either dead or you find someone unresponsive and they're bleeding or anything. I imagine that it's so traumatic that people completely like lose their shit. You know, because I know I would. I don't know that I'd have to go to the psych ward, but I know I would be shocked and panicked and freaking out. So, or is it because she had this overwhelming physiological response because she thought that she was partially or completely responsible for it?
Or is it because her BAC at the time she was at the hospital was 0.09? Like she's drunk when all this is happening.
So they bring her to a psychiatric evaluation, and at that time they take her blood, and that's when they find out that her alcohol levels that high. So what was it?
0.09.
Okay,
This
which
is
is
at 8 o'clock in the morning, roughly. That's what it is.
okay. And did they ask her when the last time that she had a drink was, or
Well,
I'm just curious because that is actually the legal or the limit where you could get pulled over and charged with a DUI. So if she was that drunk at that time in the morning and she stopped drinking, let's say at midnight or whenever she went home, I mean, she was like piss ass drunk. Unless she was drinking up until like all night, which is a possibility because she was stressed out because she didn't know where he was, and she still hadn't gone to bed at night, right?
Okay, well, in my mind, there's a couple scenarios. So she's drunk at this time at 0.09. So the toxicologist is saying that would have placed her at being at 0.292 at the time she dropped John off, which is insane.
Piss ass drunk, yeah.
I also could see a scenario. I mean, she admittedly was drinking at the bars, and there's footage of her drinking. But I was saying during the trial, like, how did they know she was really having alcohol? Because they didn't take her blood at the time she dropped off John. And I don't think she was the person driving in the morning. I believe the friend Carrie was the one driving at 5 a.m. when they were looking for him. So, like, how did they know she didn't come home from the bar and drink in between dropping him off and that search in the morning? To me, that 0.292 BAC is speculative because they don't know if she was at that level when she was driving earlier.
Well, regardless, she's still at this time of the morning. She's drunk. So
she's drunk.
She's drunk at
she's
drunk at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, she's drunk at this time. So
okay.
Like that doesn't matter. So I'm saying like for the psych hold, I think like I'm gonna just keep reiterating this. Clearly, I think she's an extremely dramatic person. So you have that. They're fighting. They're not in a good place, and then you add alcohol on top of it. And he's unconscious. She doesn't know what's going on. At the point of her psych hold, she doesn't even know he's officially died yet. So, of course, she's freaking out.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I am curious if this happens with a lot of people. I mean, I would certainly not be okay if this was my husband.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So she herself gets a medical evaluation at the hospital then. Which is interesting, actually, because if she kept her shit together and wasn't freaking out, like, there would have really been no indication for them to take her alcohol level at that time. And so she's there. When did it, at one point, was it like, okay, he got there because somebody hit him or Karen hit him or whatever, that he ended up there? Like, where did it turn from she's at the hospital with her boyfriend that's unconscious to now she's a suspect in his death?
So she was only arrested a couple days later. So this was pretty much the leading theory. And because of her saying, I hit him, they were taking the friend's account of what happened. They were only zoning in on her because she was the last person to have seen him alive, allegedly. We don't ever have confirmation that he went in the Albert's home. They're all claiming he never went in the house and they never saw him after they left the bar, even though he's dead on their front lawn. Everybody says they didn't see him.
A police officer in an investigation is almost like all of these things I talk about with celebrity deaths and the VIP thing, because it's just not, it's not handled the same exact way you would do a stranger, kind of, you know? And then things are skipped and things are not done properly. And I mean, obviously in this case, there's a lot of suspicion that there's evidence tampering, right? So we'll get into that later. But so when you say it's botched, like what happened? They show up, and so if I'm a cop, and I have no idea what cops do, really, for the most part, I don't really ever deal with that. But if I'm a cop and I show up to a person's house that there was a dead body found on their front lawn, the first thing I'm going to do is go up to the house interview who lives at the house, find out what happened, and go in the house and like look around and see what the hell's going on.
Okay, so the investigating departments in this case was the Canton Police Department, which is the town they were in, and the Massachusetts State Police. I'm kind of confused why the state police was involved at all.
And he was a Boston City cop, correct?
Yes, but they're friends with like other officers
cops
at
are
other apartments.
That always happens, yeah.
So the lead investigator on this case was Trooper Michael Proctor, who was friends with the Alberts, the home in which this guy's found dead, right? So when they start investigating this case, they don't close off the scene. They never go into the Alberts home. The Alberts never even come outside. I'm sorry. If there is a dead person on my lawn, I'm going out there, let alone my friend.
This is so ridiculous. So this guy comes to investigate the death and he knows the homeowner and doesn't go. Like, you mean to tell me he didn't even go in the house to pee or anything? Come on. The guy.
And he didn't think it was a conflict of interest in any way.
No, not at all. So why would it be? Like,
so the Alberts never come out, even though their friend is dead on their front lawn. They never close off the scene. And then they collect blood samples in red Solo cups and then put those samples into paper grocery bags. What was anybody thinking?
I am confused because let's say, for example, and God, I hope that I'm wrong with this because this could open up a whole can of worms for other investigations these people have done. But let's say Michael Proctor is a Massachusetts State Police officer, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, let's say any rando that he doesn't know, they get the same exact phone call. Why don't they have the proper tools with them to collect evidence?
That's what is blowing everybody's
Is that how they
minds.
were collecting all evidence for all homicide investigations with red Solo cups and grocery bags? Like, it's so bizarre to me that they don't have that kind of kit with them. Now, I don't know how smaller departments work or whatever, because I would think that would be a crime scene investigation thing. That wouldn't even...
It doesn't matter how small the department is. That would never be acceptable in 2022 when this happened.
No, I understand that. I just am trying to figure out, because I only really know the way things are done in like a big city like Philadelphia or something, where... So I'm just wondering, like, what employee, I guess I would say, is... Because you have to be trained in collecting evidence like that. Crime scene evidence, getting it in such a way that you're not having contamination and things like that. So I'm wondering, like, what person is in charge of doing this? And if so, I would assume, I guess we should never assume, but you would think that they would have this whole entire kit in their car at all times, because they're getting called to potential scenes all the time, and you're going to have to collect evidence. And if not, you call the proper person to show up to collect it properly. That's why I'm just so confused, like, why there would ever be a situation. And furthermore, so they have like a stack of red Solo cups in their police vehicle.
No,
like, where'd they get the Solo cups from? The house, right? Like,
I actually think they got them from a neighbor's house. So
they were just like, hey, we need to collect some. I mean, it's just
like
like it doesn't.
We're out of sample cups. We just are going to use these as backup. Like, it was totally negligent.
Yeah, and like you're a cop, right? So you know that when someone dies under suspicious circumstances, that this is eventually going to go to court. So maybe if you're out of specimen cups, you just make a call and say, like, hey, can so-and-so drive me these things because I need them? There's a lot of... This is outrageous. Okay.
Well, this is why this case starts getting insane, because you have two sides of the story, and then you start off with the very first step. The investigation is botched from start to finish. You have major conflict of interest with the officers involved in the investigation. I'm sorry, but it's not like even just this one guy showed up to take all these samples. You have multiple officers at this scene doing this and participating in this. Let's just say, regardless if this was a normal person that was found dead and the police showed up, already not following protocol, correct? But when a police officers found dead, are these not considered like extra high profile cases? I mean, this guy was 46 years old, active duty police
officer, exactly.
And this isn't considered a high profile case with extra steps that should be taken.
So one interesting thing I remember when I was looking up the case of this, so when I was at the Philly Medical Examiner's office, I had an autopsy of a cop that got shot, and I was really kind of impressed and also just really intrigued by the whole thing of it, because it was like his body was brought to the medical examiner's office, and there was a lot of cops that came in and were watching the autopsy, and that was clear that he was shot. And he was the victim of a police violence, you know what I mean? Like he was killed by somebody in front of everybody. But in this particular case, when there's police officers that that at least were at the scene, I feel like it's a conflict of interest for police officers to be at that autopsy, because they would potentially have say and influence at the autopsy.
Yeah.
because they were at the scene of the crime. Literally, one of them lives at the scene of the crime. So I'm not I don't really understand like what in the hell these people were thinking. It's just it's out of control.
So right there, all that evidence collected is inadmissible because it was mishandled.
And their reasoning was they were out of specimen cups, like that was
I don't think they ever gave a reason. They were just kind of like, I don't know, it happened. Like,
so if you had a family member who died in that jurisdiction, wouldn't you be questioning everything if this is how they handle one of their own?
So I think this is contributing to the sensationalism of this case because it's opening this Pandora's box of all this corruption between all these police departments.
So at the time of the autopsy, the state police detectives watched John O'Keefe's autopsy, which I think is a huge conflict of interest because the lead proctor guy was friends with the person that owned the house. I mean, just
But
listen,
the
like
Alberts were never even considered a suspect.
But like how? Listen, they don't have to be a suspect, but that was the goddamn scene of the crime. It's just outrageous. They don't have to. It's a conflict of interest because the person died on their front lawn. Okay? End of story. It doesn't matter if they weren't involved or not. It's just kind of like, let's just keep this separated because that would make the most sense here. Okay, so God, this story is just so in detailed. So at this time, obviously, they are thinking Karen Reed is somehow involved because they go to her house and arrest her.
Oh, they're not thinking she's involved. They're like, she's done it. Like, they already are like, she must have done a 3-point turn and hit him, and she was so drunk that she definitely killed him. Like, this is the only theory immediately.
So within a couple days of his death, they're at her door to arrest her. Now, this is Canton police?
Yeah, so you don't go in the house or interview like anybody else really that was there that night. You just assume the one person is the only person that could have done it, not anybody else, right? Just her, because they were fighting. This is where the fighting starts not looking good, because they were like, she was fighting and she was drunk driving, therefore she must have done it. Not like, I don't know, there was like 5 to 10 other people at this house at this time. We're not even gonna look into it at all.
Oh my God. All right, so they show up at her house and arrest her and charge her with...
So she's arrested February 1st, which is only a couple days later. She's charged with manslaughter, and then she's accused of motor vehicle homicide and leaving the scene of a deadly crash. Fast forward to June of 2022. The charges then get up to second-degree murder after the circumstances of the drunk driving and her angry texts and voicemails come through.
This is such a stretch.
So it literally
goes
goes
such
from
a stretch.
She hit him drunk driving to she intentionally murdered him while operating a vehicle.
Listen, like, she's basically saying, you're an asshole, you're looking at other girls. I didn't hear anything like, motherfucker, I'm going to come kill you, right? Like this.
Personally, I think
Was there anything that was like, I'm going to hurt you?
not to my recollection, and personally I think if she did willingly or knowingly kill him, she wouldn't then go home and then start leaving him angry voicemails, because don't you think your anger would be resolved by taking that person's life? You wouldn't then proceed to leave their dead body like all these angry voicemails for them to never hear.
Listen, like there's been plenty of times where people like to do stuff like that so they could throw off cops and their investigation, to be like, I called him and left him a voicemail. I couldn't have thought he was dead. But she gives me crazy bitch vibes, but not like Jodi Arias crazy bitch vibes. Like Jodi Arias was like manipulative and like slimy, and you would expect her to do something like that, but Karen Reed's just kind of like, doesn't give me that exact vibe.
Everybody knows a couple in their life that loves screaming at each other and having these horrible fights, and then going home and having like the most aggressive makeup sex. Like, just everybody knows somebody that acts like this, and this is the type of couple they seem to be.
100%. 100%. So she gets arrested and charged with all these things, and so I guess where should we start now with her trial?
Yeah, so she posted $100,000 bond and pleaded not guilty. So through the duration of these trials, she is not sitting in jail. Like, she's out, she's living at her house while these trials are happening. So
that's a little, I mean, I guess we hear this from time to time, but like if you're being accused of killing a person, like you could just pay and get out and be free.
Well, it depends on the circumstances. And as we know from other stories we cover on the show, apparently you could do really egregious things and have bond. So I think for this, they might have considered it an isolated event, and she was potentially not a threat to society. So trial 1 starts on April 29th, 2024. So we start off with, the prosecution's going really hard on the points we talked about earlier with, the cop saying that she must have hit him because she claims she did hit him, according to the friends, and that she was drunk driving. But the defense argued that this was a mass cover-up for the police departments, which I think wasn't that good of a strategy to go into that first.
Well, but they're right. Listen, like,
there's definitely corruption, but going straight into this is a mass cover-up, like, you gotta build up to that.
Yeah, and I mean, when I say they're right, I don't mean that it's a cover-up. I'm not 100% sure if I think that, although you're either the dumbest person ever, or you're. I almost rather it be a cover up, because people just can't be this stupid. You know what I mean? Like,
but people are that stupid. Like, this is the problem. You want to think a police department would actually take the proper sample cups and collect blood samples? But no, they took red Solo cups.
The cups are the least of their problems.
But that's concerning that it started there.
It's the house. The house, not going into the house is really, to me, it's a flaring, like, red flag. Like, it's something is just not right. And I don't blame the defense for being like, this is a conspiracy theory, because on what planet, what justification would they even have for that? That's not protocol even a little bit. Like,
no, it's not. So the defense's theory was that during trial 1, that they thought John was beaten up inside the Albert home or attacked by their dog and then left outside to die. So a really alarming piece of evidence that was uncovered during this trial was that Jennifer McCabe, who was Nicole Albert's sister, who was there that night, at 2:00 in the morning Googled how long to die in the cold. But she says she didn't see anything, and it was not about that. She said Karen asked her to Google how long to die in the cold when they found him at 6:00 in the morning, and she happened to Google that on a tab she had opened at 2 a.m. And technology experts are saying that's not how that works.
Oh, okay. So there were people that actually testified that said that's. So what is she? So she's trying to say Karen asked her to Google it, and she opened like a Safari window that she already had open in her phone, and that's when she put it in.
Yeah. So
and that window was open. They can't tell that.
No, they can, which is why they said that's not how that works.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, because when you originally open the tab, it should be on a web page that's like clocked at that time. And then the next time you touch it, when you go, you know what I mean?
I would imagine the way it works is that you see when the search was submitted, not when the tab was open.
Yeah.
So
listen, that's actually complete bullshit. Like, I feel like right now, as a non-expert person, I could go on my Google searches right now and see exactly what time I hit the button.
But also, if Karen, like, why would that be Karen's first thought to ask her how long to die in the cold? Like, I just don't really understand it.
Yeah. Yo, that lady too, that McCabe lady is freaking creepy looking.
Well, they all are when they're tested. And
Yeah,
they're all
but
salty. It's like,
she's like, I don't know. There's something a little extra sus about that one.
okay, so other evidence coming out from this time. Let's go back to the house for a second. This trial happens 2 years and a couple months after John's death. In between this time, the Alberts just got rid of their dog they had had for years. Didn't explain why. They sold the house that they never dared exit to see their dead friend on their lawn. Is that not suspicious?
That is okay. So that's before the trial started, but they
Yes.
knew that she was on trial for this.
They know
So-
she was going to trial.
So, okay, so you can look at it from both perspectives. Number one, which is more likely, in my opinion, that it's suspicious that they're selling the house because they're trying to get rid of it because
But also
they
the
were
media
involved.
frenzy.
The media frenzy, etc. But another thing is like, okay, their friend died there and they don't want the memory. Like, I don't want to look out at my front lawn every day and picture my friend being dead and frozen on my
But
front
how
lawn.
could you picture it when you never went outside to see him laying out there? Like,
That's
I
true.
I understand your theory.
I mean, like that's the human response would be, this house brings too many memories, but unfortunately, and like people get rid of houses and sell houses all the time. People don't usually get rid of dogs. Could we say that? Like, unless you have a dog that's been like violent, you know, like attacks your friend in the front yard or whatever, or that you have to get rid of them. Like, people that have dogs typically think that their dog is like a child and you couldn't even take that dog away if you tried. So them getting rid of their dog, what was their they didn't even have like a legit reasoning. But they gave it to somebody, like the dog was still alive at some point. I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I don't think they just like gave it to a friend. I think they gave it to like a shelter.
they
or
brought it to
something.
like Germany and dropped it off at somebody's house or something.
No, seriously. All right, so let's get into Brian Higgins, who was also there that night. Brian was an ATF agent who was friends with John O'Keefe, and he said one night when he was leaving John's house that Karen had kissed him and was sending him flirty text messages. So, considering they were all hanging out that night, is there a possibility there was an argument about that going on in the car?
Is there proof of this flirtatious relationship?
Yeah, via text.
What?
I mean, the texts were basically just like her calling him hot, which is inappropriate when you're in a relationship with somebody else, asking him to come over her house.
Okay, yeah. So that to me is a little bit more than even flirtatious. I would say that's like next level, like
Cheating, basically.
almost cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to consider he's like hanging out with all of them still, even though she like kissed him, which I don't think we know if he really like kissed her back or was engaging back. I think he was flirting back with her, which is also like, why are you flirting with your friend's girl? What's wrong with all these people?
I don't know. They're all kind of like really gross people, honestly. Okay, continue.
Okay, so the biggest thing in this was Trooper Michael Proctor. So obviously we know there was a conflict of interest because he was friends with the Alberts, and then we know the investigation was just like botched beyond anybody's imagination. So then it gets even worse. He was caught looking for nude photos of Karen on her phone and then sent texts about her to friends and family and coworkers that referred to her as a whack job and said he hoped she'd kill herself.
Wait, how did he have access to her phone?
Because for the investigation, they were probably looking through her data.
That's so. How do they know that he was looking for naked pictures?
Because he was talking to people about it.
That's so weird.
So
That's really
unprofessional.
unprofessional.
Well, he got fired from the Massachusetts State Police, which I feel like you have to do something incredibly wrong to be
and also
terminated from the
you're
police
like a
that.
total dipshit because that probably affects your pension and everything else. And I mean, these guys are like older, approaching 50, like they're probably getting close to retirement age anyway, and you're just going to like throw away your whole career for why would you do that if you knew that it was going to court?
Well, this
Like,
makes me think they had been doing stuff like this for years and years and years, and he just thought he was untouchable.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that here because of I mean not that regular people don't drink and drive, but like all these people are law enforcement officers and they're just driving around piss ass drunk. Like, why? Because if they get pulled over, they won't get in trouble.
Did you watch that 2020 he was just recently in?
Yeah. I really thought that his body language was suspicious to me, honestly.
Well, why?
Just because I was watching, Kara was over, so we were watching it on the couch, and then we would like stop watching it for a while and we would talk, and then I would just turn the volume down, and I was like looking at his mannerisms and stuff, and I'm not like a body language expert, obviously, but I just felt like he seemed terribly insecure and like he was hiding something. It just was like he didn't feel comfortable or confident. You know, when you ask somebody a question and they like, even, I don't even want to say the kids because they're kids, but you ask them a question that they're lying and they break eye contact or they're a little whimpery with the response. It was kind of like that. I know that could happen if you're nervous too, but it just didn't seem that he was being very truthful.
Well, I would say I think it's kind of weird that he even did the interview with 2020, and he probably did it because he needs money because he got fired from his job. And like, what's he going to do after this? Work at Starbucks? Like,
but he had to have done the interview before the verdict came out. And maybe, do you think that he was confident that she was going to get convicted?
Yeah, but he was fired months ago. It didn't even matter if she was convicted or not. He was still getting fired for what he did.
No, I know. I'm just curious. I'm curious if he thought that because it got released the day of, right? Yeah, it was the day of the verdict.
Yeah, so he was obviously interviewed before the verdict.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. So I'm just curious because there were a lot of people online that were, I've been watching this the whole time on X or whatever and just being like, oh, Karen Reed's toast. Any person that doesn't see this, she's getting guilty, is this and this. Like, people honestly thought that she was, all the evidence was so clear, and you're like, was he confident that he was going to come out and clear his name? Because I feel like now it makes him look even worse.
Well, somebody confidently left us a YouTube comment last week that said Brian Koberger is innocent, and we clearly haven't done our research on the Idaho murder case. I'm like, okay.
Oh, God.
If you want to think so, lady, but I don't know. Like, nothing this guy did is making him innocent. I mean, you can't be like admittedly looking for nude photos on a murder suspect's cell phone device. What is wrong with you? And I'm sure that made his family feel real great.
This is also weird too. Like, if you hate someone so bad, which he's investigating John O'Keefe's death, so he doesn't even really know Karen Reed. So
No.
Why is he saying, I hope she kills herself? And also, if you want someone to kill themselves, why would you want to see them naked too? It's like a weird...
Well, to me, it's some weird dark fetish, and it has me questioning the rest of his profession and how he's treated other suspects that he's interacted with. I mean, honestly, it's really concerning.
Okay, so he has these text messages which don't look good for him. What about during the night or the next day? Did they get everyone's text messages, like Jen McCabe's? I know they got her Google search off her phone, so they had to subpoena her phone. And
I mean, they looked through everybody's texts, but they weren't really looking at them. And I don't even think the prosecution was looking at them. I think the defense had subpoenaed those.
Wasn't there something too that after? So they claimed that they left the house at a certain time of night and they didn't see anything, but wasn't there like a weird thing that there were phone calls between them or something like that?
So they
Like
claimed,
who? Like if they were all together in the house, like why would they be making phone calls to each other?
yeah,
That's
so
just bizarre.
they claim they left around like 1 o'clock in the morning and didn't see anything at all. But then her Google search how long to die in the colds at around 2:30 in the morning, and then yeah, throughout the middle of the night there was a bunch of phone calls between people that were hanging out in the house. Like
That's bizarre.
It
If you're
is
having a
bizarre.
party and stuff, like why?
I
Yeah,
actually
because
feel like they didn't focus on that enough.
yeah, but they're cops, right? So maybe they were thinking, oh, they can't really know what you're talking about on the phone.
All right, so the big question is, how did John die, right? We really don't know at this point how he died. So the prosecution is claiming that they have this tail light from Karen's car proving that she hit him. But then the defense provides Ring doorbell footage proving that she hit it beforehand, and that's why it was broken.
So where did they get the pieces of the taillight then?
So the pieces were at the Alberts home, but then this is where the conspiracies start coming in because they claim they didn't get them until the snow melted. So they were there for a while. And then there's theories that the police department planted the pieces there and that her taillight wasn't that broken even the day of when they were looking for him. So there's all these theories that the police broke the taillight and planted the pieces at the scene, which is shady. But let's talk about the autopsy, because wouldn't it mean that he would have these injuries on his body that showed he got hit by a car?
Yeah, so there's definitely specific things that happened during this autopsy, which if you watch the trial at all, and any trial, you're always going to have the prosecution is going to have a medical examiner testify, and that's the one that did the autopsy. And then you're going to have experts testify on the other side to argue with why they're wrong. So, and that's just kind of a matter of opinion, I guess, for the jury to listen and decide what they believe, because science isn't always an exact science, and you really could finagle results either way sometimes depending on what you want them to be, I guess. So the medical examiner in that case determined that his cause of death was due to blunt force trauma that incapacitated him, and he was found out in the cold, and he could not remove himself due to the head injury, and therefore hypothermia was also listed as a contributing factor. Okay, so that would be his cause of death. But the ME's office said that the medical examiner didn't have enough information to determine if those injuries happened by accident or they didn't happen by accident. So right there, that makes me think, well, how are they charging this woman with homicide when they don't even know if, like, let's say she was piss-ass drunk, they got in a fight, and she was like, go in the house with your friends, and backed up into him somehow. I don't even know why he would be behind the car. Like, the whole entire thing of it is bizarre, of the position of it. But she backed up into him and ran him over and then drove off. This was an accident. How would you know if the medical examiner is not able to say if it was definitely intentional or not? Like, how are they able to say it just because she sent some nasty grams to him?
The second-degree murder charge never made any sense to me. I never will understand it. I understand them wanting to go after her for vehicular manslaughter, but still, they didn't have enough evidence for it.
So, if you hit somebody with a car to the point where you knock them off of the ground, you're expecting to see certain injuries on them, right? So he did have sternal and rib fractures, with the medical examiner determined that was due to CPR injury. So when you're doing chest compressions, oftentimes there's a lot of hematomas or bruises and broken ribs because you're really pushing on someone's chest, and it's easy to break someone's rib. He had other evidence of trauma. He had a lot of bruises on his hand, which were... at first, when you look at them, you're like, oh my God, he's got bruises on his hand. But then you look at them and you're like, anytime you've ever had an IV or gotten blood taken out of your hand, sometimes you get big bruises on your hand like that. They are not injuries you would see in somebody that was trying to defend themselves. They're not injuries that you would see if somebody got hit by a car, because it's on the top or the dorsum of your hand. And it's just a weird place to get a bruise. And we know that he had the IV and stuff. Now, one thing that he had, which is why the medical examiner said that he was knocked down and had this head injury, is because when you looked at his face, he had what's called periorbital ecchymoses, which is we also call raccoon eyes, or it looks like he has 2 black eyes. Now, when you see that, you might think, oh, he got punched in the face, but usually, obviously, when you punch someone in the face, you don't punch them twice in each eye. So this is caused by a skull fracture. So sometimes when there's a fracture at the base of the skull, blood could leak and get behind the eyes, and it gives this appearance around the eyes that you look like you have 2 black eyes, but they're not really from trauma to the eyes themselves. It's from a fracture of the base of the skull. So there's another photograph from the autopsy of the back of his head, and he has evidence of blunt trauma. So he has this laceration that's about I'm looking at it right now. So it's about 3.5 centimeter in length. A laceration is due to blunt trauma. So it's when your skin is hitting against another blunt object. And with the head, it's a little bit interesting because, or any part of the body that's covered by bone, is because the bone is blunt object too. So it hit something and it caused a laceration. I would describe it as the skin being split, like it's a tear. So it's jagged, and the edges of the wound might have like little pieces of flesh in between it, because it's not the same as if you got a knife. Like, think about if you had a steak and you ripped it in half as opposed to getting a sharp knife and cutting it. Like, it would just look different. Mm-hmm. So something, he hit his head on something which caused his skull to fracture. And I guess the first medical examiner that did the autopsy was saying that obviously it wasn't enough of an injury to kill him because he was still alive when they found him. But it could have made him pass out and could have made him stuck there in the snow. Now, I guess throughout this whole entire trial, they're trying to figure out, well, like, what hit his head? And did he get knocked on the ground and hit his head on the ground? How did he get this wound on his head? Now, the most interesting part, really, of his whole entire autopsy is this picture that's been going viral on X and on Instagram and everywhere throughout the trial, are these wounds that are on his arm. He has these crazy wounds on his right arm, only on his right arm.
Which they're trying to say is caused by the tail light hitting him.
They're trying to say it's caused by the tail light hitting him. And just like when I looked at it the first time, I was like, absolutely not. So the medical examiner describes them as abrasions or scrapes. And this whole entire time, I've never thought that they were an abrasion or a scrape. An abrasion is when you're a kid and you're riding your skateboard and you fall and scrape your knee. You know what it looks like, right? You know what an abrasion looks like. When you look at these wounds, you could just tell that that they're depressed. Like, you could see that it's thick, and it's not caused by a scrape along a piece of plastic. Furthermore, one of the biggest things is you would think that if you got hit with a car so hard that it knocked you on the ground, that there would be a bruise or there would be a broken bone. Nothing. There's no bruising or broken bone underneath of this guy's arm. Okay? And when you look at it, they have like a very specific look to which the prosecution says they're saying it's from the tail light and from the broken plastic. And the defense is saying, no, our expert said that it looks like a dog bite. So this is really an interesting thing to bring up, because then you have to think about, well, this house that he died outside of so happened to have a dog
that they happened to get rid of.
That they so happened to get rid of. And it was a German Shepherd, I believe. It was like a big dog.
Yeah.
And these wounds would match with an attack of a big dog. The medical examiner said they didn't see any defense wounds from a person. But I'm like, well, could these be defense wounds from a dog? I mean, this is a common place if you're seeing a person that's getting attacked by the dog, if a dog came up to you right now, like what would be the first thing that you would do? You would put your arm up to block it, right?
I'd run away because I
Well,
don't like dogs.
Why? So it could attack you from the back and start like chewing on you? No, like if a dog ran up to you and looked like it was going to bite you, your first reflex would be, especially if you were a right-handed person, would be like to block it, right?
Yeah,
and that's where those injuries are. It's right on his right forearm, right? So that's a little bit unusual. Also, when you look at these injuries, because dog bites have very specific wound patterns and they have a particular V-shaped hole, like meaning that one end of it is almost looks like the letter V. And when you look at John O'Keefe's autopsy pictures, that's what it looks like. It's really crazy because it's from the canine tooth, and that it is like the anchorage point of it, that, and then it pulls down with the weight of like moving the arm and things like that. And then those bites can also be accompanied by these parallel lines that you would see with the claws from a dog. And when you look at these wounds, they're parallel lines. Like it's bizarre to, if you think about you getting hit with a broken piece of plastic from a tail light, they wouldn't be perfect parallel lines that you would see from two perfectly spaced apart claws. You know what I mean?
And then to bring back something we mentioned earlier is this glass he took from the bar. There is a theory that perhaps the cuts were from the glass, but that's just not the case.
Listen, how? What was it? What kind of glass was it? Like a pint mug or like a pint glass or a martini glass, whatever.
Any
like
bar glass wouldn't give those type of wounds.
I'm looking at this right now, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 10, 15 marks on this guy's arm. Like how?
Exactly.
It's just the theory doesn't even make any sense. Now, the reason that I say it's important that the police that were involved with this investigation, who also knew the police officers involved in the case, it was a conflict of interest, is because if you're the medical examiner's office and you get a body and you start doing the autopsy, and then the people that are there that are watching are the investigators, they're going to say, oh, this is what happened. That we think that this woman hit this guy with the car, and we saw the broken tail light did it and all this stuff. Well, you're planting information in the head of the medical examiner. Now, the medical examiner should not be thinking what they're told and just be thinking about what they're looking at. And if you're looking at this, you can't say that was caused by a headlight. Like, even if somebody's telling you that, your little antenna should go up and be like, that doesn't look like an antenna that a headlight would cause that injury, right? But that didn't happen in this case. But she also didn't really seem to have any explanations as to what caused that. But that came later with the testimony and things like that.
Wait, based off what you just said about the investigators being in the autopsy, I wanted to bring up a point that Cheryl keeps making on Zone 7, which is that I find it odd that the investigators went to the autopsy, but none of the police officers went to his funeral, which she said is incredibly unusual for law enforcement funerals, that not all of them would be there.
So wait, Albert, that guy didn't even go?
None of the cop friends went to his funeral.
That right there too. See, I didn't even know that. That is absolutely right. Listen, when and like the firefighters and cops kind of, even though they're different, they kind of have a lot of the similar things. Like if there's a firefighter that dies in another city, Gabe will go to the funeral. Like
exactly.
They are like a tight-knit brotherhood of guys. That is very bizarre, and especially bizarre because they're friends.
Yes.
Like that's really weird.
And she didn't go because she was under arrest. So
okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. That like, I understand. I guess I could understand if she was there and they were so mad at, like, because they thought she killed the friend. But that's so shady.
Get into the hypothermia too, because you had a really interesting take about that.
Okay, so So she said that the medical examiner had said that he had died of hypothermia, basically, which means that his body temperature went too low. So our body temperatures, we have something called homeostasis because we're warm-blooded animals. So our body temperature is at 98.6 degrees, give or take a few degrees at the same time. And that's the ideal temperature for our organs to function at their absolute best. And if you get too hot, if your temperature goes too hot, so that's when you get a fever basically, then it doesn't function. Your body doesn't function best. Obviously, because you feel like you're literally going to die when you have a fever of that high. And that's called hyperthermia. So there's a point that it could get too high that you will die. Your organs won't function anymore. Well, the same thing can happen if you get too cold too. So this is really interesting. And this is my theory that proves that he wasn't laying there as long as they said that he was laying there. According to the prosecutors, John was knocked over by Karen Reed's car and left for dead around 12:30 a.m.-ish. And he wasn't discovered until 6 a.m.-ish, meaning that he was there for around 5.5 hours. The temperature in Canton, Massachusetts, on the night that he was supposedly knocked down by Karen Reed's car between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. ranged from 18 to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. He was outside wearing a hoodie partially covered in snow. He wasn't dressed appropriately for the weather, but Karen said it was very common for him not to wear a coat. When his body was discovered, like I said, his body temperature was in the low 80s. Now, I had found this in one of my forensic books, a chart on Newton's law of cooling in relation to hypothermia. This chart that I have showing here, you're going to have to go in the gross room to look at it, but it's showing a chart of how many hours you're in the cold according to how much you weigh and how your body temperature drops the longer that you're in a certain temperature, okay? So this particular chart that I'm referencing is based on a person that's 176 pounds who's in 25 degree Fahrenheit air temperature and a 10 mile an hour wind. Now, we're going to say that John O'Keefe weighed a little bit more than that. So instead of 176 pounds, he was 217 pounds-ish. And the temperatures were between 18 and 28 degrees. So in the range of the same exact temperature that his body was found in. According to this chart, a 176-pound person would not survive in these conditions for more than 2.5 hours. Okay?
So they're trying to say he was there for 6.
For almost 6 hours. That's what my question is. According to this chart that we use in forensic textbooks, this is from a forensic textbook, a 176-pound person would not survive in these conditions for more than 2.5 hours. So obviously he weighed a little bit more, so he could have lasted a little bit longer, but there's no way more than double that time, 5.5 to 6 hours, with lower temperatures and more extreme weather because there was snow, that he was out there. And on top of that, he wasn't even dead when he was found. He was still alive when he was found. The medical examiner, so this is even more interesting. The medical examiner said, alcohol intoxication has been shown to inhibit some of the mechanisms that the body uses to maintain heat. So it's definitely a factor that is a negative when it comes to hypothermia. So when our body's cold, the natural response is to shiver to generate heat, right? So alcohol delays that mechanism. And a head injury with unconsciousness also delays that mechanism. So it's in my opinion that he was no way out there for 5.5 hours and still alive when found down, not wearing a coat, directly on and covered by snow. There's absolutely no way that he was out there that long. And just last week, one of the defense medical examiners testified that she didn't think that he died from hypothermia. And I'm like, why is this the first time I'm hearing this in this entire trial? Because
you brought it up months ago.
I brought it up months ago. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that I brought it up in the Gross Room Post and I brought it up on the Zone 7 podcast. But I don't understand why, because this right here proves a timeline. They're able to prove his weight. They're able to prove the temperature. They're able to prove the conditions. They should have been able to say there's no way that he was outside during that time. Now, what's really interesting is all of a sudden when you look at her text messages, Jen McCabe's text messages at 2:00 in the morning, which is now an hour and a half past when Karen Reed said she was there. Now you're like, that's interesting. Like that timeline could start matching up a little bit closer. And just think about the potential dog wounds or whatever happened. Is it possible that there was some kind of a fight in the house and the dog attacked? Like think about this sometimes. If this is just a theory, obviously, but if he went into the house and they were like, "Where's your bitch girlfriend?" Right? And then he was just like, "Don't talk about my woman that way." And they got up in each other's face. What does a dog do with their owner? They get like, if I walk into Mom and Pop-Pop's house and go to kiss Pop, like the dog starts eyeing me up like, "Yo, get away from him. He's like, I'm protecting him."
Yeah.
Right? So if John O'Keefe was in an argument with the homeowner and they were screaming at each other, the dog could have jumped up on him like that and knocked him over to the ground. And they could have brought him outside. And that would explain the wound on his head. That would explain the wound on his arms. And that would explain the text messages that are like, how long, what does it say? House?
She spelled it wrong.
Well, because she was drunk. How long to die in the cold? I mean, I'm just putting out like a potential theory.
There's also this grand conspiracy that they were all in this giant swinger situation and it's like a cover up for them all being swingers or something.
Well, I don't know. I just think that I don't know. Because listen, if they were swingers, like that could be a conspiracy theory, but if they were swingers, like I feel like there would have been evidence that they were doing it. There's no text message. They're acting like teenagers, honestly. Like that's how they're acting. Like, "Oh, I like you and I like you and you're hot," and the weird go in and make sure it's okay that I go in the party. Like it's all just like, it's all bizarre behavior in my opinion. It's bizarre behavior that he was the guardian of 2 children and they were at home alone and he was out drunk with his friends. Like all of it's weird to me. But like people do what they're going to do, whatever. I personally just think that I don't 100%, like I'm not one of these like free Karen Reed people, because I think all of the people involved are just kind of like scumbaggy kind of people. But I definitely just am 100% in agreement with the jury on this. There's absolutely no way that you could prove anything. And even if you could, the worst you could say is she pulled away because she was pissed off and hit him by accident and didn't realize it. There's no evidence to suggest anything else.
Yeah, so during this first trial, there was 9 weeks of testimony and then several days of deliberation, and then they ended up being a hung jury. They could not come to an agreement that she was guilty or innocent. They just couldn't. So this means a retrial. God, this must have been such a horrible moment for her.
The thing is that she's not likable, right? You would say that?
She's not. I was just texting my cousin Devin last night about what, because her and her sister Liv just started watching all the. I'm like, I can't believe you've never watched anything about this. So we were texting.
This
about
is
it
a good
lot.
episode, a good starter episode if you want to get into it now.
Yeah. So I said that via text. I was like, she comes across unlikable because I don't think she is, but like it doesn't mean she did it.
Exactly.
Like, I agree with you. I'm not going to stand outside the courthouse with a sign "This is free Karen Reed," but I could say they can't prove this beyond reasonable doubt that she did it.
And like another thing I want to say, which we probably should have said in the beginning of the episode, is that there's just so much more to this trial that we're not even covering like a lot of it, because for time's sake, we've already been talking for over an hour and it's just there's so much
suffering.
But
I know.
But my whole thing is obviously because I'm a PA and I do autopsy and surgical pathology that I have to bring up that just the timeline alone from a scientific standpoint isn't possible, and the wounds as well. And another thing that we always bring up when Maria and I are talking about this case is the similarities with cases like the Ellen Greenberg case, which if you don't know about that, that's a whole other
We
a
don't
whole
even
other
get into
topic.
that. That's like a whole
I'm
other
not
thing.
getting into it. If you're interested in it, you could read about that in the gross room, but it's just another case that leaves a lot of answers because the initial investigation was botched. And that's when you and when you become a police officer and a forensic investigator, and when you do autopsies, it's just so important that you are meticulous and you go slow and you get the correct answers, you collect the evidence correctly, because if you get trust lost in you early in the process, the rest of the case is shit.
No, absolutely. All right, so let's wrap up with what happened in trial 2 and then the verdict. So we've gone over some differences in trial 2 that began on April 1st, 2025, and it just ended June 18th with the verdict. So again, weeks and weeks and weeks of going over all of the same evidence and testimony. I think what was successful in this case was that the defense changed their strategy. So instead of really focusing on the conspiracy, which I think they were right to bring up, I just don't think it was right to go that deep into it at first. They chose to go like, why weren't you looking into anybody else besides Karen? Why was the investigation so botched? And that was really important for the jurors to see. I always get tripped up with saying jurors. Jurors. So basically, like, you didn't look at anybody else besides Karen, which we've seen. They didn't go in the house. They didn't collect the evidence properly. They didn't do anything correct. There was conflicts of interest with the investigators. So how could you reasonably charge her not ruling anybody else out, basically? Also, historically, mistrials are really good for the defense because you've proved enough doubt the first time around that you could pretty much zero in on that for the second time. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And I mean, I am just, and like at the end of it, it sucks because this guy, he's a police officer. He was an active police officer. Most people have really good things to say about him. He was, I mean, that's a really big thing that he did, being in his 40s and taking his sister's children and raising them, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, and now, like, think about his mom, for example. I don't know, parents, mother, father, whatever, his parents. Like, this guy, they lost a child already to cancer. And now they're losing, and now they lost a son. And if you have, I mean, that could have been their only children, or whatever. If you have a couple children, like losing two of your children when you're still alive, it is terrible. And not only that, they're old people now, and they have to raise kids because they're going to have to raise kids because of this. So you feel terrible. And like all of this circus is, and we're guilty of it too, just being like the Karen Reed trial. It's just like, no, it's just John O'Keefe was the one that died. We don't know how he died. We're never going to know how he died unless someone confesses or some video pops up at some point. And their family is left with this circus, literal circus. And now they left and they have no justice.
They have no justice regardless, because regardless if the police officers that were his friends were involved in his death or not, the police is responsible for fucking up the investigation so bad that the family can't seek justice.
Exactly. It's the police's fault.
Whether she got convicted or not, there are still not answers as to what happened to him, and they will never know unless, like you're saying, somebody straight up confesses to exactly what happened.
As of this recording, only one juror has come out and said that he believes not only did they not have enough evidence, but he actually believes that she's innocent. Now, he didn't really say what the other people said, and
no, he did. He
said
said they were pretty split on it. So some of them thought she was innocent and some of them thought she was guilty, but the people who thought she was guilty agreed that there was not enough evidence beyond reasonable doubt that she killed him.
Okay, so I'm really curious to see what they say, because really that's the most important part, is to see how other people are perceiving it, not just us people that are looking from around, like people that sat in. But this is the thing, like we could talk to multiple people that know all of, because we all watched the trial, the past two ones, like we all know the details and everybody has such varying opinions on it. So, but I want to know, when they were sitting in the room, like what are the details? And I bet you when we hear from all of them, it's going to have to do with them not going into the house.
Well, of course, because how could you live with yourself if you convicted a woman not having concrete evidence like that?
So when we hear from them, that's when the O'Keefe family needs to listen to that, and that's who they should put their anger towards. Because
Yes.
think about how different this would have turned out if they collected everything properly, if they went in the house, if they had accountability. It could have turned all of their decision around, really.
Well, of course, but you can't convict her without this evidence, and that's the problem. I'm not surprised she was found not guilty on the second-degree murder and the manslaughter or the leaving the scene of a deadly accident. She was found guilty of operating under the influence, which I think was appropriate, and she got 1 year of probation for that. So, like, that was appropriate because she's being held responsible for the thing she was doing wrong, which was drunk driving. But
And
they did not have enough proof.
that judge was so salty.
All right, so like everything, so the entire investigation's botched. This story is weird. You don't really know what happened. And then you have the mistrial first time around. And then what was weird with the second trial was, I mean, the judge sucked. She was so salty. She was so rude to everybody. She was probably so pissed she didn't get charged.
She was very blatantly biased, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you 100%.
And listen, like I said that, I don't think Karen Reed doesn't have
She's not likable.
She's not likable. But also, I don't know. It's like we obsessively like watched the Jodi Arias trial, and you just look at her and you're like, yo, this chick is like batshit crazy. Like Karen Reed, I feel like she's like a passionate,
she's nuts, but she's
like
not a
rough
murderer.
around she seems like she's like rough around the edges and like gets pissed off, and like I don't know. I never really got the vibe that she was like, do you know what I mean? Like conniving and some of the things
she's just
people.
not a murderer. Like,
yeah, yeah. And if anything, you could if anything, I would say the most thing that you could do is if she was ever going to get convicted, was that she bumped him by accident because she was drunk, and you see people get in a fight, they like drive off really fast, right? Like it would be something like that, like it was an accident. I just 100% believe she had no idea that she hit him and like went home and like played out and called him and pretended like
she 100%
that did not happen.
And they don't have any evidence to prove she did it. So the last weird thing that of course had to happen with this is the jury knocked on the door and said they had a verdict, and then a couple minutes later said, never mind, we don't. So then everybody got summoned to the courtroom, and then the salty judge sealed the original verdict, and I'm like, I hope they read the correct one just to make it fair. But it was so bizarre, and on court TV they were saying that was incredibly unusual that happened, and the last time something even kind of similar happened was with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, when the jury said they had a verdict and they didn't fill the slip out correctly, and then all they had to do was fill out the slip. So every single element of this trial was so bizarre. I think.
Well, her comment. So I guess when they decided that they were going to sentence her, right, or whatever, they were going to give her sentence, and she said, so she was just kind of like, oh, so basically she's getting a charge that any first-time drunk driver would get. Okay, like it wasn't it said like that? Just like, oh, so this psycho that killed a cop is just gonna like, that's how it was said in that exact attitude.
I think you're reading a little too
no, I'm
much
not, dude.
into it. There was definitely tude behind it.
There was a tude like, okay, so you could just kill a cop and this is all you're getting out of it.
Because do you think this judge could seriously fathom the inappropriate actions of multiple police departments?
Well, No, but like
seriously,
it happened.
It is unbelievable. It did happen, but it's unbelievable.
One other thing that we should mention too, for those of you who didn't watch, when they read the verdict inside of the courtroom, there was like an audible
You could hear the
like
people
screaming outside.
Screaming outside. Like, it was so loud from the microphones inside of the courtroom from outside. It was nuts. All right, well, you guys have suffered through this very long explanation. We tried to get as much as possible in here, but of course there's so much to this case and we couldn't watch it every single day on court TV. We have a life. So I don't know.
And we couldn't give up hanging out with our kids and go stand outside of the trial every day for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever it took.
But we hope that after all of this, you have some better understanding of why this case was so sensationalized and ridiculous. Okay, so now on to the recap. What were your first thoughts initially?
So overall, I think that whenever you really follow a case, or even I just was talking about a couple weeks ago when Gabe and I were listening to the Frankenstein book in the car, then we watched the movie afterwards. When you watch it, you want to be able to pick out all of the familiar details you have about that book or about that story. And I do think they did a pretty good job with that. They really covered all of the different things. And since this case is so complex, I was wondering how they were going to do that in an hour and a half or whatever it was. But I feel like they did. So that was the pro of it. The con of it was just like, it was just really like
bad.
Like it was just really acted like I don't really know what to say. It looked like it was low budget kind of in a way.
I agree with you that I thought visually they did an incredible job with recreating all. I actually, in some cases, like with the Ring camera footage of her backing into the car, I wonder if they used actual police footage of that or they really did such a good job recreating visuals like that. I thought the visuals in the courtroom were great, of the crime scene, of the house, everything like that. I thought they did a really good job. It's exactly what I remembered from covering the case and looking at the crime scene photos. Casting?
I disagree because I thought that was super corny. Like they showed news footage, CCTV footage, and Ring cam, personal security footage, and it was all reenacted. And they showed footage of like interviews of her in jail and all this stuff. It was all reenacted, and I was thinking like, why didn't they just use the real footage? But I guess there could have been a reason that they couldn't get to it. But the fact that they recreated footage, to me, is just weird. They put like a timestamp on it, like, oh, this is what happened, and you're just like, okay, but like I don't know.
My main problem with this overall was I thought if you just turned Lifetime on and this was on and you had never heard of this story before, you would have no idea what happened. I felt like I could only follow the movie because I was so familiar with the details of the case. It was kind of all over the place, and they did a good job, like, alluding to, they explained his death, they explained her 2 trials, not even that well, the trial part. They explained their tumultuous relationship, whatever, but I just felt like it was so confusing.
Yeah, it was a little, like, back and forth, the way they did it, but they had to, because, like I said, there were so many details. I thought, the woman that played her, I thought she did a good job showing her demeanor, because Karen Reed, I mean, obviously I don't know Karen Reed, but like she just has a very specific kind of like demeanor to her, and I think the girl did a pretty good job. I think that, dude, like, could we just talk about, she just had so much filler in her face, it's distracting to me.
Well, I was going to say that too, because, like, I'm not trying to sound rude against Karen Reed or anything, but, like, she was going through multiple trials and her boyfriend just died. So, like, her face was gaunt looking. Like, she looked like she was a woman going through a rough patch in her life. And this lady had so much filler and Botox in her face. I mean, I really didn't think that lady looked anything like her at all, like, even kind of. And I know casting can't be perfect with that, except the judge was pretty perfect.
Dude, the judge was the best part of the whole thing. It was so on point. And that judge is like such an asshole.
Yeah.
In real life, the judge. I remember her just being like, she was so rough around the edges, and I just was like not into her at all during the trial. But when I saw her, I was like, hell yes, they did such a good job with the casting of her.
Well, they also put such a bad wig on her, which I didn't know was intentional to, like, you know, slam her or whatever. But I did think it was funny. I guess my other issue, I mean, whatever. You can't really do anything about the filler because that's just the nature of the game anymore. And I've complained.
But like, it's just like, are we going to look back at this period of time and think that it's just so obvious? It just happened with Stranger Things too in season 5. Millie Bobby Brown had so much filler in her face. Like, you can't even stop staring how distracting it is.
Well, I talked about that with Michelle Randolph in 1923, because I think for the most part they did a really good job casting that show and making it time accurate. And then, like, all of a sudden they're like, oh, let me introduce you my girlfriend. And I'm like, whoa, this is not 1923 any longer. This girl has so much stuff in her face. And how are we even going to act like she seriously lives in this time? It was unbelievable.
So what do you think the perspective of this film was? Was it, because I personally think it was from her perspective, like, this is what happened and she was the one that was innocent. Because I suppose you could take the same evidence and kind of rewrite it as if it was like she was guilty.
Yeah, I did think it was primarily from her perspective, but I also don't, like, they mentioned some of the other damning evidence against the other people, but, like, not really. So that's what makes me think it's going the other way, like protecting the other people involved a little bit. There was not really mention of other things going on other than the how long to die in the cold and the
they didn't bring up the dog and all that shit.
Yeah, like, they didn't bring up that family that owned the house didn't even come outside when the police were all there because their friend was dead on their front lawn, which was super weird. They did bring up the stuff with the investigator Michael Proctor, and I thought they really chose interesting tidbits of his text messages and stuff of what they were going to reveal. They definitely got into him, like, looking for nude photos of her and calling her a whack job, but they also, like, brought up this point that he was, like, calling her the R word, which I, like, couldn't believe. Of all the terrible things he said, that was, like, the section they chose of things he was saying about her.
I think though, like, I didn't watch the trial. Like, I watched pieces of it, but I didn't sit there and watch it. And I thought that it was good because, you know, I just read about it all the time, and I thought that it's good to hear that guy, like, reading those text messages out loud and saying it in front of the jury, because you really are just like, this is so freaking inappropriate for a cop to be doing this.
Oh, totally.
And, like, we know it happens, whatever, but, like, and the whole time I was thinking, this guy is such an idiot. Like, why would you text message that shit?
Yeah,
like, you're just dumb.
We didn't even touch about that when we covered Brian Walsh, but he was also an investigator on the Brian Walsh case, and that, like, they were trying really hard to use the Karen Reed stuff, like, he's inappropriate in the Brian Walsh case, but that never ended up coming around successfully for them. But he doesn't realize how this is going to affect his other cases moving forward. How stupid can you be? You're a cop. You literally know what people have access to in investigations.
One thing I thought that was really good was because she has, like, Karen Reed is a little, like, cold to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they did portray that well in the hospital and everything like that. Like, she doesn't act like she seems like she's kind of, like, very, like, got a wall up and is very jaded and just doesn't act like a person that, you know, is just having meltdowns. Like, she automatically went into, like, business mode to fight for herself. But, like, that could just be how her personality is. Like, you know, people like that just aren't very, like, lovey-dovey and emotional and,
yeah.
So I think that they portrayed that well, because when she went to the hospital, it was just like if you just put yourself in that perspective, you think you would be hysterical and like trying to fight to go, like, I don't know, there just was like some disconnect, which I thought was really happening in real life. You know, one thing I wanted to say was in the beginning of the movie, they were portraying their relationship and it seemed like it was like very like hot and sexual. Is that something that was mentioned? Didn't it just seem like it was they were just constantly like wanting to go have sex a lot? It just seemed like a lot of that kind of talk.
Yeah, it did, but that could be the lifetime component because everything they make needs to be like steamy for the horny old ladies, you know? So like that could have just been that component. I don't really feel like their relationship came across as that sexual when they were describing it in court. They were definitely in a relationship, but not that it was overly sexual. Like when I think of that, I think of Jody and Travis, right? Like when they were in court going through their text messages, you're like, these people are sex freaks, obviously, like the way they talk to each other.
Yeah.
But like that never came across in this. Something that really bothered me was when they were playing the voicemails of her screaming at him. The actress had a very intense Boston accent, and then in the rest of it, she had none at all, which I thought was so weird because Karen Reed has a pretty thick Boston accent.
Yeah, and in those situations, I'm like, why aren't you using the real footage? Like, I understand you might have to recreate footage if there's an actual person that's in it that's not in the film, but there might be a reason that they weren't allowed to use them for like legal reasons or something like that. Was anybody like fighting about this on either side about this movie coming out? Did anybody help with it? How did they receive it?
I didn't see anything. I mean, they are still in civil litigation right now, so I don't know if they can comment on stuff like this or if things like this movie are going to be brought up in court right now. I mean, she is not anywhere near being done with being in court.
Because one thing I did get to from this is that I felt bad, and I always have, so this isn't a new feeling, but I did feel really bad for his mother because his mother lost both of her children now. She lost her daughter who died from brain cancer, and now her son that died from this. Her daughter's husband died, and the kids went to John O'Keefe and was living with them. Now they lost both their mom and dad, and now their adoptive dad.
Yeah, they're orphan 2 times over.
So I feel bad. I felt really bad for the mother, and I felt really bad for his brother because, and listen, like this is a movie, so this isn't real life, but I wonder how, like, it seemed very obvious to them what happened, and then when they went to trial and all this other stuff came out, I wonder if there was ever a moment of doubt in their mind that they were like, we chastised this woman and it's possible that she didn't do it.
It's just hard to say because I feel like they were really listening to the friends that were involved, but then obviously when it came to court, all that information came out that didn't paint them in the best light, and you have to wonder, like, I mean, at this point, I doubt anybody's going to get convicted in this case unless anybody makes a confession or has proof otherwise, right? But right now, I think this is just where it's going to lie, and it's not fair to the family because they're never going to get justice for the death of their son.
No, it's not, and it's terrible. And then also in this movie, it kind of portrays them as like not like they just shunned her out real fast, which if that is what it is, then that's fine.
But if you're being told by everybody, and this woman's going to trial for it, that this woman killed your son, I don't think you're going to be so sympathetic.
And I guess this is realistic, and because, you know, they did make it a point to have John O'Keefe talking to his brother and saying, like, I think I might want to marry this girl and this and that. And it seemed like his mom and his brother were like into it. Like they were like, oh, she's great. Like marry her, right?
Yeah.
It's not like as soon as this happened, they were like, it's definitely her. She treats him like crap. Like, so that's what was weird to me because I feel like I guess the reason I'm saying this is because she had been a presence in those children's lives for a couple years. And like, was it really, like, if she wasn't involved, was it the best thing to pull her away too, when she was acting almost like, as she was sleeping at his house almost every night and acting like a mother figure towards them? I mean, those kids were like the girls' ages, right? They're like young, they're little kids.
Yeah, they're
still.
little kids.
So, I mean, just think about, I mean, the kids are the biggest victims in the whole thing for sure. But, just all that going on, it's just a very unfortunate situation, and you leave it just being like, I don't even know what the solution is, because you can't really pinpoint 100% who the bad guy is.
Yeah, because even if they left both of her trials thinking that she still did it, and I mean, the thing is with this case is we're just never going to know, but they can't prove beyond reasonable doubt that she did it, which is why she got off. So, like, even if his family leaves the trial still thinking she's guilty for it, they should still be mad at the police for botching the investigation that we're in this place where we don't know.
Oh, yeah. They should totally be mad at the police. This is 100. I mean, like, they have to be leaving. Because the first trial, you had a hung jury, which means that there were maybe not most, but the people there couldn't decide. So there were definitely people in that jury that thought that she was not guilty. And then the second trial, you convinced every single person on that jury that she was not guilty. You have to leave and just be like, is it me? Like, why are all these external people thinking she didn't do it, but I think she did it? You know what I mean? Like, they have to be...
That could be grief. It could be influence. I mean, really, think about, like, if I got killed and the police were telling you every day, Ricky did it. Like, at some point that might get in your head and you might not be able to pull yourself back.
I just feel, it's just such a terrible situation. And even for the guy, I mean, like, and I've said this before, he could have been a jerk from time to time or whatever, but, like, he seems like he was, like, a super decent human being. Like, what single guy goes to raise children like that? That's like a lot, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%. This case is just so messy in all aspects, and I mean, we're just going to be seeing it in the news for a long... It's still coming up, things about the dog, things about her SUV being up for auction, you know? Like, we're going to be seeing this for a long time.
And they didn't focus on that Jen McCabe person enough, because she's... To me, there's, like, something, like, lingering over her that makes me feel like she was involved. Like, I don't know.
I feel like because the movie title is literally Accused, the Karen Reed story, it is going to be primarily from her perspective. But I just would have thought, with that in mind, that they would go harder on the other people, but maybe they can't because it could be a matter of defamation and whatever. So I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting her dad was kind of like a main character in this movie, and he did come up in investigative details, but not as much as they're portraying him in this film. And also they had, like, this weird cameo of Turtle Boy just, like, talking to people.
But that's not him, right?
No, it wasn't him. And I wonder what his thoughts are on being portrayed like that. But it was kind of so random. This is where I'm talking about, though. Like, they didn't do a good enough job in the storytelling. They just kind of, like, it went to commercial break, and then it came back, and it was Turtle Boy talking to his followers or streamers or whatever. And then he was just, like, there, and then he went away. And I'd be like, who the hell was that?
I thought it was good, though, because they were showing that he was, like, an integral part of, like, her acquittal, because he started hearing about the case and was just like, this is bullshit. Like, what are you talking about right now? And he's the one that, like, because when you watch the news, all it tells you is that she's accused of hitting him, and you don't get to hear all those details like that. So it's one of these, you know, journalism reaching people and having people form an opinion about it.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I thought it was bad, but I also enjoyed watching it. And I, you know, they did as
Lillian
good of
said it had Hallmark movie vibes, and I was like, yeah, it's the same shit.
It's basic. It's different companies, same
Yeah.
same exact thing. Like, so I don't know. I thought it was a very typical Lifetime movie. To your point, I think they over-sexualized some of it to try to juice it up for the horny old ladies watching Lifetime. But I did think the storytelling could have been a little better, but at the same time, in their defense, they only have 90 minutes to show this incredibly complicated thing. So I'm interested in other cases they're going to be covering. We already talked about on YouTube Live how disrespectful the cast of the Idaho murder film or episode of whatever they're making right now.
I mean,
they've been
I
all
go
over the
back
place.
and forth with this because it's just, for example, for this Karen Reed one, it's just like the family is like trying to grieve and stuff, and now it's like you have to deal with the additional stress of who plays you as an actress or an actor, and how you're being portrayed in the story, you know?
Well,
I don't care about the Proctor guy, but like the mom and the brother and stuff, it's just like,
this also isn't the only movie. Like, they're making a major movie with Elizabeth Banks playing her. So there's going to be an actual feature film coming out about the case.
yeah, and that I'd be interested in that one too. Isn't that crazy? Like, this Karen Reed lady is just like a normal middle class person living in the Boston area. To think like years later, someone like Elizabeth Banks would be playing you in a movie. It's just, life is so wild.
Yeah, and people, like, I don't know. I have no idea how this movie came about, if she sold her life rights or whatever to tell this, or they're just going off of public record and telling the story. But, like, you have to think, if Karen Reed really is innocent and, like, she was not convicted, so she is technically an innocent person, what is she going to do for work the rest of her life? She was, like, teaching finance classes. You think she's going to go back to being a teacher? She's kind of too high profile for this case to go back to regular life.
She doesn't need to. People want her story. It's just funny to think about because, like, our friend Amy Lochran, like, she had a super famous actress playing her in her TV movie, right?
That wasn't even a TV movie. That was like a legit movie.
It was like Netflix, like a Netflix movie, right?
It was nominated for awards and stuff.
It was at the movie theater and everything.
I think it was just on Netflix, but it was nominated for stuff that year.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just like, it's so crazy to just, we always ask her, what is that woman's name? Jessica Chastain or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, you have someone portraying you, who's going to play you in a movie kind of thing. It's just so nuts.
Yeah, it is weird. I think visually, of all actresses, Andrea DiMatteo would have played Karen Reed the best. She's from The Sopranos. I don't know how familiar you are with her, but they look very similar, and they're around the same age, and I think that would have been the most spot-on casting. I'm curious how they got to Elizabeth Banks, or if it's Elizabeth Banks' project and she was like, I want to play this role or whatever, but I'm sure that'll come out in the next couple years, and we'll see exactly what they do.
Yeah. Next time.
Until the next terrible TV movie, we will recap for you guys. In the meantime, you should watch Amish Stud on Netflix. It's a real
Totally
winner.
relevant.
Totally relevant. Another murder case. Jen told me to watch it, and it was indeed as ridiculous as this one was. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed this bonus episode, and we will see you next week.
See ya. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.